ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जाय उदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। So Hare Krishna, this morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. So we will be taking verse 29, 30, 31st and 32nd. So first we will repeat the verse number 29. Tasyam tu karchi chorer, tasyam tu karchi chorer, Vasudeva कृतो वहः, Vasudeva कृतो वहः, देवक्या श्रुयया सार्धं, देवक्या सूर्यया सार्धं प्रयाणे रथम आरुहाद, प्रयाणे रथम आरुहाद। तस्याम, in that place known as Mathura, tu indeed, Karhichit some time ago, Shauri the demigod, descendants of Sura, Vasudeva, who appeared as Vasudeva, Krata Udvaha, after being married, Devakya, Devaki, Suryaya, his newly married wife, Sardhum, along with Prayane, for returning home, Ratham, the chariot, Arhat, mounted. Translation: some time ago, Vasudev, who belonged to demigod family or the Sura dynasty, married Devaki. After the marriage, he mounted his chariot to return home with his newly married wife. So there is no purport. We will take next three verses. Ugrasena sutta kamsa swanshu priya chikishriya rasmin hanyanam jagraha raukmay ratha shardhir ratha. Kamsa, the king, Kamsa, the son of King Ugrasena, in order to please his sister Devaki, on the occasion of her marriage, took charge of the reins of the horses, and because the chariot became the chariot driver, he was surrounded by hundreds of golden chariots. Verse 32 and 31 and 32. Chato shatam paribarham gajanam hema malinam Ashvanam ayutam sardham rathanam cha trishata shatam. दशीनां सुकुमारिणां द्वे सते समलङ्कृते दुहित्रे देवक प्राध्यान् याने दुहितेर्वत्सलः. Translation. Devaki's father, King Devaka, was very much affectionate to his daughter. Therefore, while she and her husband were leaving home, he gave her a dowry of 400 elephants nicely decorated with golden garlands. He also gave 10,000 horses, 1,800 chariots, and 200 very beautiful young maid servants, fully decorated with ornaments. Purport. The system of giving dowry to one's daughter has existed in Vedic civilization for a long time. Even today, following the same system, a father who has money will give his daughter an opulent dowry. A daughter would never inherit the property of her father, and therefore an affectionate father, during the marriage of his daughter, would give her as much as possible. A dowry, therefore, is never illegal according to Vedic system. Here, of course, the gift offered as a dowry by Devaka to Devaki was not ordinary. Because Devaka was a king, he gave a dowry quite suitable to his royal position. Even an ordinary man, especially a high-class Brahmana, Kshatriya or Vaishya, is supposed to give his daughter a liberal dowry. Immediately after the marriage, the daughter goes to her husband's house, and it is also a custom for the brother of the bride to accompany his sister and brother-in-law to exhibit affection for her. This system was followed by Kamsa. These are all old customs in the society of Varnashram Dharma, which is now wrongly designated as Hindu. These long-standing customs are nicely described herein. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna. So here what we see, these 4 verses, they explain how after the marriage of Devaki Vasudev, Kamsa, being the elder brother of Devaki, so wanted to accompany her, and also this verse 31 and 32, it is explained the amount of dowry which was given during that period of time. We can't even estimate in today's world. So today we will try to understand the system of dowry and also the traditional marriage as per the Vedic system. So what we see, that dowry is an ancient religious custom in human society throughout the world in all the countries. Now also, even it is Muslim religion, Christian, Buddhism, Jainism or Sikhism, Hindu, Prabhupada here writes Hindu. Basically Hindu means in the olden time it was considered as Sanatan Dharma. Actually the people who were living across the Sindh river, Afghanistan, that was also part of India once upon a time, they couldn't utter the word Sindh. So they uttered the word as Hind. So India has another name called Hindustan. So in also Chaitanya Charitamrita you will find Hindu, this word is often used in conversation with Kazi and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So now this word has become one word. Basically it was given by the Muslims in the olden time. So now if you refer, there is one website called Wikipedia. So in that, what they explain, all over the world, in all the countries, the custom and tradition of marriage and dowry was existing and is existing, was existing since time immemorial, what they explain. So if time permits, I will explain about the dowry system in various countries which was existing in the past. Now also it is existing to some extent. So first we will try to understand what is exactly definition of dowry. So a dowry is a transfer of parental property, gifts or money at the marriage of a daughter, bride. While bride price or bride service is a payment by the groom or his family to the bride's parents. Dowry is the wealth transferred from the bride's family to the groom or his family, mainly for the bride. Similarly, dower is the property settled on the bride herself by the groom at the time of marriage and which remains under her ownership and control. So now what we see in Kali Yuga, especially this dowry system has very much deteriorated throughout the world because of excessive demands from the bridegroom side, harassment, extortion, poisoning, killing, burning, acid burning, hanging, killing of bridegroom. Basically it is happening more in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, like these countries. So in 1961 the government made a law called anti-dowry law, but that is not followed yet. So Prabhupada explains that as per the Varnashram system, Prabhupada explains that this was existed in the human society. And also in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains Chaturvarnam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. So now if we see in depth about the marriage, so in Vedic system, the marriages they are categorized, mainly they are of two types in the civilized human society. It is mentioned according to Vedic system, marriages between Kshatriya and Kshatriya, between Brahmana and Brahmana, Vaishya and Vaishya, and Shudra and Shudra is the general custom. If marriage sometimes take place between different classes, these marriages are of two types, namely Anuloma and Pratiloma. Anuloma marriage between Brahmana and the daughter of a Kshatriya is permissible, but Pratiloma marriage between a Kshatriya and the daughter of Brahmana is not generally allowed. But sometimes by mistake or by the will of providence it happens. So we have some examples in the Bhagavatam. So the example of Romaharshana Sutta, what Prabhupada writes, Romaharshana Sutta had been given the position of a Brahmana, but he had not been born in the family of Brahmana. He had been born as a Pratiloma family. According to Vedic concept, there are two kinds of mixed family heritages called Anuloma and Pratiloma. When a male is united with female of lower caste, the offspring is called Anuloma. But when the male unites with women of higher caste, the offspring is called Pratiloma. Romaharshana Sutta belonged to Pratiloma family because of his father was a Kshatriya and his mother was a Brahmana. So now we have in the 9th canto, the Devayani, the daughter of Shukracharya, she somehow was thrown in a well by her other and a girl. Her name was Sharmista. And what happened that somehow there this king one time Yayati he was going across, and when he saw Devayani in the well, he took her out. And Prabhupada writes, because Devayani liked Yayati who was a Kshatriya, and she requested, because Devayani liked Yayati who was a Kshatriya, she requested him to accept her as a bona fide wife. Although this would be a Pratiloma Vivahava marriage, a marriage between daughter of high family and the son of lower family. She explained that this arrangement was made by providence. This is what she told to King Yayati. So there is one example given in Gautamiya Tantra. So in one village where Gautama Muni was living, so he had one ashram, and one boy came to learn from Gautama Muni. And Gautama Muni, he asked the boy, "Can you tell me what is your gotra?" And today's world, hardly very few people know what is meant by gotra. If you go to Jagannath temple in Jagannath Puri, you will come to know. These pandas first they will ask you, what is your gotra? Even South India now also. So gotra is from the rishi from whom we descend. That is called gotra. So this small boy, he didn't know what was his gotra. So he came to his mother and he asked that the teacher is asking for the gotra. So this boy's mother was a prostitute in that village. So what she told the boy, okay, you tell your teacher that your name is Satyakama and you are the son of Jabala. The teacher will understand. So this way what happened, next day the boy, he went to the teacher and he told, my mother told like this, that I am the son of Jabala. I am Satyakama, the son of Jabala. So the teacher could understand Gautama Muni exactly. So in the 9th canto, Prabhupada in 18th chapter verse 23, in the purport he explains, according to Vedic system, this is about marriage, how a marriage is to be arranged. Parents would consider the horoscopes of the boy and girl who were to be married. If according to astrological calculation the boy and girl were compatible in every respect, the match is called yukta and the marriage would be accepted. Even 50 years ago, this system was current in Hindu society. So here Prabhupada writes Hindu society. Regardless of this affluence of boy or a personal beauty of the girl, without this astrological compatibility, the marriage would not take place. A person is born in one of the three categories known as Devagan, Manushyagan and Rakshasagan. In different parts of the universe, there are demigods, the demons and the human society also. Some people resemble demigods, whereas others resemble demons. If according to astrological calculations, there was conflict between a godly and a demonic nature, the marriage would not take place. Similarly, there were calculations of Pratiloma and Anuloma. The central idea is that if the boy and girl were on the equal level, the marriage would be happy, whereas inequality would lead to unhappiness. Because care is no longer taken in marriage, we now find that many divorces, indeed divorce has now become a common affair, although formerly one's marriage would continue lifelong. The affection between husband and wife was so great that wife would voluntarily die when her husband died or would remain a faithful widow throughout her entire life. Now, of course, this is no longer possible, for human society has fallen to the level of animal society. Marriage now takes place simply by arrangement. Dampatye bhiruchir hetava, Srimad Bhagavatam 12.2.3. The word abhiruchi means agreement. If the boy and girl simply agree to marriage, the marriage takes place. But when Vedic system is not rigidly observed, the marriage frequently ends in divorce. So this is what Prabhupada writes, how marriage was conducted in the Vedic time. Now also in India, it is seen at least 75% of the marriages now also in India, most of the places they go for as per what Prabhupada has written in this purport. So now Prabhupada explains the purpose of marriage. Now we should understand that we shouldn't do anything unless there is some purpose. So what Prabhupada writes, the purpose of accepting a wife, Jai Sri Krishna Balram, Gaur Nitai, Radha Shyam Sundar ki. The purpose of accepting a wife in religious marriage as sanctioned in the Vedas is to have a putra, a son qualified to deliver his father from the darkest region of hell, hellish life. Marriage is not intended for sense gratification but for getting a son fully qualified to deliver his father. So as per Srimad Bhagavatam 11th canto 11.5.41, there is one nice verse where Narad Muni he explains to Vasudev while he was in Dwarka, Devarshi bhutaptarinam pitrinam na kinkaro naim rinicharajan sarvatmaya sharanam sharanayam gato mukundam parihartakartam. Anyone who has taken shelter of Lord Mukunda, the giver of liberation, giving up all kinds of obligation and has taken to the path in all seriousness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigods, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind or forefathers. So it is mentioned in the scriptures that basically we have 5 obligations when we are born. And also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he explains that Shraddha Shabda Viswasa Kahe Sudrida Nishchay Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krita Hai. That we should have complete faith in what we are doing, the devotional service, that everything will be taken care by the Lord. So in another instance, Prabhupada writes that the purpose of marriage is to make the mind peaceful for spiritual life. A peaceful marriage is much more likely when both the man and woman work with their natural differences. Nowadays there is no natural differences. Husband and wife, they can be on equal level. Some places they consider them as friends, not husband and wife. Times are changing. So also one place Prabhupada quotes, in human society, there is therefore a system of marriage which distinguishes us from cats and dogs. Whether we are Hindus, Muslims or Christians, we acknowledge the system of marriage. The purpose of this system is to avoid illicit sex. So this is what Prabhupada explains. Now what we see, as per the Vedic scriptures, there are 48 samskaras. They are mentioned for especially Brahmanas, whereas for Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, there are 10 important samskaras. Shudras, there are no much samskaras mentioned other than marriage and antyasti. So among the 10 samskaras, the marriage is considered as the 9th samskara. So the 10 samskara are Garbhadan, Jata Karma, Namakaran, Annaprashan, Chudakaran, Karnaved, Upanayana, Vidyarambha, Vyahava means marriage, then Antyasti, that is end of life. So Prabhupada in one purport explains that as per Manusmriti, there are 8 types of marriage mentioned in the scripture. There are 8 types of marriages. First is called Brahmana Vivava, bride with ornaments given to bridegroom by parents. This is called as the best marriage and which is authorized for Kali Yuga. Only this kind of marriage is authorized for Kali Yuga. Then the second type is called Daiva Vivava. Bride is given at sacrifice to officiating priest. So now the officiating priest is one example of Gautam Rishi. Like when Gautam Rishi, he was doing one yajna, that time what happened, Brahmaji, he married Ahilya with Gautam Rishi. Actually, Ahilya was a celestial maid, but Brahma was not finding a compatible mate for her. So what Brahma he did, he told Gautam Rishi, you get married with her. That's called Daiva Vivahava. Then third category is called Arsha Vivahava. Bride's father receives 1 or 2 pair of cows from the bridegroom. Now here what we see, that bridegroom is giving something to the father of bride, because some cases what we see, the father is not capable, he is not financially capable, so in that kind of thing this happens. Then comes Prajapati Vivahava. Prajapati Vivahava, it is mentioned, father gives daughter to bridegroom without receiving any gift. So in the Bhagavatam, this is a marriage of Sati and Lord Shiva, where Daksha's daughter was married with Lord Shiva. Then we have Asura Vihava. This is like demoniac. A bridegroom purchases the bride from her family, relatives. Then we have Pishacha Vihava. Pishacha Vihava means where it is the Prabhupada explains lowest type of marriage where they rape the bride. So Gandharva Vihava, we know the first marriage, which is a Gandharva Vihava. So we have Lord Krishna. It is also called one kind of Rakshas Vihava, where you kidnap the girl. Also Arjuna, he kidnapped Subhadra. So in the olden time, these were allowed. Also there is one kind of marriage called Bala Vihava. It is also one kind of Vedic. In the olden time, now also in India, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, this is practiced, where children between age 7 to 12, boys and girls, they are married. Also in Krishna Leela, what we see, when Krishna, he came to the age of Pauganda, when he entered the 7th year. So during the Brahma Vimon Leela, what happened? All the calves and cowherd boys were and stolen by Lord Brahma. And Krishna, he took the form of the cowherd boys and the calves. And during that period of time, Purnamasi, she told Nanda Maharaj, this year the stars are very good for the marriage of this Bal Vivaha, child marriage. And today Kali Yuga, people, they are doing one kind of marriage. It is called Sarvajanik Vivaha. It's called mass marriage, where what happens, like hundreds, 200 bridegrooms, they get married in a big hall, where the cost of expense comes to very down. So whatever it is, and what we see practically today, people, they go for love marriage, court marriage, marriage by consent. Even there is now the Muslims, they are doing that love jihad. So whatever it is, because the influence of Kali Yuga is increasing. So one Brajavasi, there is one time one Brajavasi, he was telling that during Krishna's present the pastimes, when Krishna was doing that Prakat Leela, often the elderly Brajavasis, they told Nanda Maharaj, we have a very beautiful daughter. We want to marry our daughter with your son, Krishna. So the Brajavasis now also they tell this kind of thing. Also we find in Chaitanya Bhagavat, when Sachi, she wanted to marry Nimai Pandit for the second time, when she wanted to marry Nimai with Lakshmi Priya. So the father of Lakshmi Priya was Vallabhacharya, and he was very poor. So what happened, Sachi Mata, she sent Vanmali Bhatt, a person who is to coordinate the marriage. So she sent this person and she told, why don't you arrange this marriage between my son and the daughter of Vallabhacharya. So what happened when this Vanmali Vipra, he went to the house of Vallabhacharya. So Vallabhacharya, what he explained, that I am in poverty. Due to my poverty, I am not able to give anything. I can give just 5 haritaki fruits. I can give only this one kind of fruit which is eaten after a big meal. So in the scriptures, especially Mahabharata, Ramayana, in the Bhagavatam, there are many instances where there is a mention of dowry. Now today the topic is about the dowry. So in the Ramayana it is mentioned that when Sita was married, so when Dasharath went to the court of Janak Maharaj, so what he told, we are here beggars, we have come to ask for a daughter, for your daughter. We have not come for a demand. What he said, I am begging for your daughter. That kind of was the attitude during that period of time. So it is mentioned Sita bought in dowry at Lord Ram's marriage. As a dowry, King Janak gave several lakh cows, expensive carpets and hundreds of silk clothes for Sita. The dowry also included elephants, horses covered with gold ornaments, chariots with many guards and servants and maid servants. This is what is mentioned in Ramayana. Also, Mahabharata mentions when Draupadi was married with the Pandavas, King Drupada in dowry gave a huge amount of things for Draupadi. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the third canto, the marriage between Kardama Muni and Dehavati, Prabhupada explains, the custom of giving one's daughter in charity with a dowry is still current in India. The gifts are given according to the position of the father of the bride. Prabhupada explains that the dowry which must be awarded to the bridegroom at the time of marriage, so Prabhupada explains, means greatly valuable gifts befitting the dowry of an according to a person's standard. So Prabhupada explains the Vedic way of marriage, such a dowry is still given to the bridegroom by the father of the bride. Even in poverty-stricken India, there are marriages where hundreds and thousands of rupees are spent for dowry. Dowry system is not illegal, as some have tried to prove. The dowry is a gift given to the daughter by the father to show goodwill, and it is compulsory. In rare cases where the father is completely unable to give dowry, it is enjoined that he must at least give a fruit or a flower. That example I spoke from Chaitanya Bhagavat. So Prabhupada also explains that according to Vedic system, a daughter is given a sufficient dowry at the time of her marriage, and therefore Sati was given in dowry by her father, and the ornaments were included. It is also the custom that the husband gives some ornaments. In today's world, they exchange the ring, golden ring, whatever it is. But here it is particularly mentioned that her husband, being materially almost nothing, could not do anything, Lord Shiva. So Prabhupada explains in another purport, King Gadi had daughter named Satyavati, whom a Brahmana sage named Richika requested the king to be his wife. King Gadi, however, regarded Richika an unfit husband for his daughter, and therefore he told the Brahmana, "My dear sir, I belong to the dynasty of Kusha. Because we are aristocratic Kshatriyas, you have to give some dowry for my daughter. Therefore, bring at least 1,000 horses each, as brilliant as moonshine, and each having one black ear, whether right or left." So this was a condition put by King Gadi. So Prabhupada explains that as the dowry, a powerful king Nagnajit gave 10,000 cows, 3,000 young maid servants wearing golden ornaments and their necks, and bedecked with fine clothing, 9,000 elephants, 100 times as many as chariots and elephants, 100 times as many horses and chariots, and 100 times as many maid servants and horses. This one we have to multiply it by the first. Now we can imagine. Also Bhagavat mentions in the 10th canto, when the daughter of Duryodhana was being kidnapped by, anyone knows who tried to kidnap the daughter of Duryodhana? Bhagavatam 10th canto, Samba. Yeah. So when they caught Samba, Lord Balramji, he came, he wanted to make a understanding between the Yadus and the Kurus. Somehow they were not agreeing, but when Balramji, he showed his might, so they came to their senses. They fell at the feet of Lord Balramji. So it is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Duryodhana, being very affectionate to his daughter, gave her dowry 1200 जो है, so it is mentioned 1260, that is 60-year-old elephants. The elephants were 60 years old. 12,000, that is 1,20,000 horses. 6,000 golden chariots shining like sun. 1,000 maid servants with jeweled lockets on their neck. So also Chaitanya Bhagavat mentions during that period of time that most of the, especially that time, the title for the Bengali priest, that is Chakravarti, Chattopadhyaya, Bandopadhyaya, all these people, they were spending so much money in their daughter's marriage. So in today, Kali Yuga, especially in India, there is a price for the, according to the educational qualification of the bridegroom. The bride family has to pay the price according to the educational qualification. And totally what we see, it has become a topsy-turvy. So people, they have their own ways of doing things. So now the second part of this lecture mentions about Prabhupada writes that how that in the olden time, how this marriage is a bona fide system, and how dowry is also a bona fide way of giving charity. And Prabhupada explains that this was existed. What Prabhupada explains, these are all old customs in the society of Varnashrama Dharma. So what we see in the material world now also, this practice is existing throughout the world. Now also it is existing. So as I told before, as per the Wikipedia website, what they mention about different countries, their customs and other things. We'll just go only short things. So in the olden Babylon, what they mentions in the Babylon, there was a code of Hammurabi. In ancient Babylon, the dowry is described an existing custom. Daughters did not normally inherit any of the father's estate. Instead, with marriage, the bride got her dowry from her parents, which was intended to offer her as much as lifetime security as her father or family could afford. Then ancient Greece. So in archaic Greece, the usual practice was to give bride price. It is called hedanon. Dowries were exchanged by the later classical period, 5th century BCE. A husband had certain property rights in his wife's dowry. In addition, the wife might bring to the marriage property of her own. Then in the Roman Empire, it is mentioned that Romans practiced dowry. It is called dos. The dowry was property transferred to the bride on her behalf by anyone else to the groom or groom's father at their marriage. Dowry was a very common institution in Roman times, and it began out of a desire to get the bride's family to contribute a share of the cost involved in setting up a new household. So now when we see, when a marriage takes place, both sides they contribute for a new family setup. That is what is the understanding. So in China, it is mentioned dowry was common in different historic periods of China and constituted through the modern history. Locally, it is called Jianzhong. The dowry ranged from land, jewelry, money to collection of clothing, sewing equipments and collection of household items. Then Europe, it is mentioned that dowry was widely practiced in Europe until the early modern era. Folklorists often interpret the folk tale of Cinderella as the competition between the stepmother and the stepdaughter for the resources, which may include the need to provide a dowry. Then England. Dowry was used in England, however, the right of daughters to inherit of a woman to hold property and other rights in their own name made it different instrument on the continent. The Salic law, which required females to be disinherited and disenfranchised from land ownership, did not apply in England. Then we come to Holy Roman Empire. The 13th century code records all filled with disputes over dowries, and the law became increasingly complex. Then, Victorian England, dowries were viewed by some members of the upper classes as early payment of the daughter's inheritance. And in Russia, it is mentioned the dowry as late as 19th century. It is mentioned dowry was common practice in Russia throughout the 19th century. Then Romania. In Romania, as late as 18th, 19th centuries, the exclusion of dowries, dowered girls from family inheritance led to increased cohesion with the nuclear family. The wife's male relatives controlled the dowry, but she retained sole ownership of the dowry and wedding gifts. The America, the indigenous cultures, the Red Indians, according to one of the ethnographic study of indigenous cultures worldwide, around 6% of North Indian indigenous cultures practiced reciprocal exchanges involving the giving of gifts between both bride and the bridegroom's families. Among the tribes of the American plains, a combination of dower and the dowry was used. The groom would give a gift of horses to the bride's parents, while they in turn would give a gift to the groom. The exchange was somewhat reciprocal. Mexico. The Spanish colonists brought dowry custom to Mexico. Spain's law gives bride the right to control their dowry after marriage, contrary to usual European practice of transferring the dowry to control of the grooms and family. The women in practice often did maintain control over their dowry after marriage. Then France. The French government made efforts to encourage marriage for the male soldiers and traders in New France by granting dowries to women willing to travel to colonic Quebec. And the French crown provided dowries to many of the women persuaded to travel to New France, that is America, for marriages and settlement there. They were known as filles du roi, daughters of the king. Then again in United States in the 15th century, there is a painting where it is mentioned that one person, he weighed his daughter, his name is John Hull, in Boston, his when 18-year-old daughter was to be married, he put shillings, silver shillings according to her weight in the weighing scale, and that dowry system existing in that Native American tribes. Now we come to Brazil. The dowry was a custom brought to Brazil by Portuguese settlers. Colonial economics means the families had a great stake in inheritance of land in particular. As in Europe, the eldest daughter was given usually granted the largest dowry by her father. So this way we have Bangladesh. The original custom of Bangladesh was the bride price called pawn, where the groom family makes a payment to the bride's parents. This has gradually been replaced with jyotik. Then also we have other countries like Pakistan. In Pakistan, dowry is called Jahej. It is called delivered from the Islamic Jahej. Then we come to like Nepal. The practice of dowry is common in Nepal, and the dowry related violence is increasing because of her problem. As a result, the dowry system has been banned in Nepal. Then Sri Lanka, the dowry is known as Devedda. The payment of dowry in Sri Lanka has a strong tradition and has been connected to family violence. However, its importance is presently declining. Afghanistan, dowry is called Jahej. A large dowry is sometimes expected and given in Afghanistan. Some houses are almost emptied so that the daughter may make a grand show at the wedding. So this way there is a endless. In Iran also dowry has existed in Persia over 1,000 years and called Jahinz. Jains means investments, furniture, jewelry, cash, and other paraphernalia a bride's family gives to the bride to take with her to the groom's family. Then Turkey, dowry is known as chayej. Chayej is the property or money the bride family gives to the couple at marriage. The giving of dowry has been replaced with exchanging gifts at the marriage in the present time. So Azerbaijan, we have Tajikistan, Egypt, so Morocco, there is no end to the list, so we are running less of time. Also there is a mention of Bosnia, India, as I told. So now we can understand in the olden system there was one Sanatan Dharma, and in the present society what we see, although there are so many countries, they have their own traditions and so many other things, religions and all. But this, at least the marriage and giving of dowry, it was existing then, now also it is existing. And now there is some decline in the custom and many rituals. This is what is happening because of the Kali Yuga. Also Srimad Bhagavatam 12th canto mentions that how the marriage will take place only by agreement between the boy and the girl. That is what is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that Prabhupada often quotes. So we'll finish the class over here. So anyone has any comment or question in regard to today's class? So Mataji. Mataji.
I've heard many times about the marriage of the expansions of Krishna to the gopis when he was in the Gopanda age. And I've also told the story, but I don't know which Shastra it comes from. Do you know where it comes from?
Which, regarding?
Regarding when Krishna expanded himself into all the cowherd boys.
Yeah, in the Brajavasis, what they explain in Brahma Vimohan Leela, when Brahmaji.
Which Shastra does it come from?
Now in the Bhagavatam, like what I told, that was from Brajavasis. I didn't tell it is from Bhagavatam.
No, I know that.
So
I also tell the story, but I don't know which.
no, I don't know. Now if you see the Brajavasis, when I take this Yatras Parikrama, oftentimes Brajavasis they tell so many anecdotes the past during Krishna's times, because
You also don't know which Shastra it comes
no, because they don't have much quotes from any scripture.
from.
So oftentimes Brajavasis they tell many interesting things about Lord Krishna's marriage. Thank you for that.
Yes. No, just like you were speaking about so many different dowries of different countries, different places. But how does it connect with Krishna? Can you tell me something about it? How these other countries they are?
No, I am not connecting with Krishna. Now today's topic was about dowry and the marriage. So what Prabhupada explains, dowry is a Vedic system, marriage is a Vedic system. In today's world, what Prabhupada explains today, they don't much consider about this. But what Prabhupada is basically, he writes in the Bhagavatam, in the purport, all these are old customs in the society of Varnashram, which is now wrongly designated as Hindu, whatever it is. These long-standing customs are nicely described. So now, if we see what I given the reference, they are all bona fide, and now also they are existing. So I am giving from one bona fide website where they give everything which they go and study the culture from different countries. So this was existing, marriage as well as the giving of dowry. So in regards to Krishna, there are examples of Krishna married and he got dowry from some queens. Like all instances are not mentioned. So these are what Prabhupada explains. These are Vedic traditions, which are now also followed by people, by modern time also. Although times are changing, like recently in India, one big businessman, just few years back, his daughter was married, and the marriage expense was 300 crores. You can't imagine what a big money that is. So whatever it is. So in regard to Krishna, I think we have to follow what Prabhupada writes, Chatur Varnam Maya Srishtam. This Varnashram is being created by the Lord, what Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. So we follow what Krishna is explaining. Also when Krishna he married that 16,100 these things, princesses. So because they were kidnapped, because they were like, they will not be married by other princes. So at their request, Krishna he married them. The queens of Dwarka, if you see that story, so there is no much mention. But Krishna he married them in Dwarka. And there is no much mention how much their parents gave and all. So I am not much clear about your question.
Also, Krishna got dowry from all those princes also. Though they were princes, Krishna got a dowry from all the princes also. Because they were princes over there. So Krishna had a palaces for 60,000 and they had a big.
Yeah. Krishna had 10 sons, 1 daughter, they were married. So but there is no much detailed, this thing I don't have idea how they were married and all.
Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.